Yeah, this Muse album, it's not good. This is a new album from UK rock outfit Muse, Will of the People. It is their 9th full-length LP and arguably their heaviest and most metal-driven album so far. Narratively, this record also dives further into a crap-caked rabbit hole where, they're mostly just focusing on this idea of authoritarian world control, dystopia, end times being nigh, the world essentially being screwed. All sentiments that I don't necessarily disagree with on paper, but Muse continues to go about exploring them in the worst and tackiest way possible, which was certainly the case on their record Drones, and I would say even more so the case here on Will of the People. Not just in terms of what is being said on this record, but also like the songs and instrumentals soundtracking the whole thing. Each track on this LP just becomes more awful and ridiculous than the last. And believe me, this record starts off on like the worst foot possible. The title track, Will of the People, which I think it's pretty inarguable that this track interpolates multiple elements of Marilyn Manson's The Beautiful People, which, why that song you would want to give such a heavy nod in 2022, especially after all of his awful allegations and a lot of his newer and classic stuff falling out of favor artistically. And not only do Muse like heavily reference this song and its drums and its riffs and its chants heavily throughout this cut, they arguably make all of it worse. The will of the people, the will of the people. Like, there's nothing about this track that is not disgustingly over the top, gross, annoying. In fact, it's so cringe-inducing, I have a sneaking suspicion that this album is secretly a CIA psyop to trick people out of being interested in any kind of politics. Which I get an even stronger sense of that on the following track, Compliance. You know, after all these years, you would think Muse would be better about not writing so many crappy pop rock jams with very non-specific lyrics with references to rebellion and oppression, especially considering like back in the late 2000s, I believe the band had Glenn Beck as a big fan of theirs because while a lot of their tracks did have, you know, political undertones in the lyrics, for some reason it was kind of landing with Glenn, even though Muse wasn't necessarily like writing from that place, and they needed to publicly denounce Glenn and what he stands for because obviously they don't align with him and he's like a total freaking nut job. But really what could have helped Muse avoid that situation is if they just got a bit more specific with their feelings and their thoughts and their leanings in their songs instead of just delivering them in this super general way to the point where even somebody who's like, you know, 110% QAnon could identify with what they're saying. Even the track Verona on this thing, which sounds like the worst U2 song ever, soundtracked with all of these 80s analog synthesizers. This cut contains lyrics about taking off your clothes and your mask. Yeah, that one's gonna play over well with the weirdos. Like, regardless of where Muse's political leanings on this record lie, the way it reads, it just comes off like fence-sitting bumper sticker crap. There's the track Liberation, which reads like a huge Queen ripoff, and honestly, while some of the vocal harmonies do go hard, I don't want to be reminded of one of the best rock bands of all time on one of the worst rock records I've heard in years. There's also Won't Stand Down, which is essentially an Imagine Dragons song with a lot more distortion on the guitars and heavier metal drums. Some jump the fuck up riffs as well. Exactly the kind of thing that you don't want to listen to, as it is gross and annoying as hell. Ghosts, How Can I Move On, sees the band taking a bit of a breather for a piano-led ballad with a super basic chord progression, like a very bad radio pop chord progression. In fact, it's kind of weird how pompous Muse's music comes across much of the time, but at its core, it's just pap. But the thing that bugs me the most about this track is, I guess Matt Bellamy was going for a heart-wrenching tune about those who have been lost during the pandemic, which in concept is fine, is great in fact, but it's framed like a breakup song, which feels a little odd. And if that doesn't feel like a weird combo, consider the track right after it, titled You Make Me Feel Like It's Halloween, which sounds like a really shitty 80s Michael Jackson-esque Halloween song. Yeah, I'm sure there's some kind of metaphor to this track too, but literally, on a surface level, it's supposed to be a fucking Halloween song, and it sounds like trash. The mix is shit, the distortion is too harsh, the analog synthesizers sound like garbage. This is like if Danny Elfman had no fucking idea what he was doing. Kill or Be Killed, with its pummeling metal riffs, is honestly the only track on the LP that I could say is kind of passable. I think the guitar playing is solid. The choruses aren't tacky or gross or anything like that. It's just like an okay song all around. Maybe it sounds amazing in comparison with some of the worst parts here, but looking at it somewhat objectively, it's just kind of tolerable. Then there's Euphoria, which kind of sounds like Muse consciously trying to write a theme song for the show. It just sounds like a really bad TV theme, like if Euphoria was set in the 90s or some shit like that, with a super hype set of vocal harmonies on it. But as far as I know, Euphoria is pretty good on a theme song. Not really sure if that show needs a theme, but I suppose if they ever change their mind, this one is here. And of course, what's the best way to end a record like this? With a track titled We Are Fucking Fucked, which, give it to the track. The guitar playing and the drums, maybe some of the most hype on this entire LP, but truth be told, this song is coming a little late in the track list. I think I was fucked the moment I hit play. Telling me I'm fucking fucked at the end of the album really does me no favors. But I mean, I do get the sentiment of the track. I do get the energy of this record in terms of like things being awful, things being over, things being hopeless. I wouldn't entirely agree with that point of view, though times are dark and the light is dim. That is true. I do not disagree with that. I guess as far as that type of messaging goes, that very negative, pessimistic messaging, do I want to hear it with this instrumental? Do I want to hear it with these lyrics? Do I want to hear it from Muse? Not really, truly, and honestly. If anything, Muse writing and singing about this is really doing a disservice to the public's ability to take how dire things are getting seriously. Because as serious as the topics on this record are, this is not a very serious record. In fact, it is a goofy record. It is a goofy-ass record. Potentially the worst album in Muse's discography. And just excruciating, embarrassing for me, just having heard it, like secondhand embarrassment for the band. This is the kind of record people point to when they say shit like rock music is dead. And if this is what the future of the genre sounds like, maybe it deserves to die. Yeah, this new Muse record is not good.